The next guest on my podcast is Annie Legge from Tech for Good Southwest, and I'm so pleased to have Annie on the podcast because Tech for Good Southwest are very special to us at Geiston this year. They're our mission partners of the year. We're trying to do as much as we can with them to promote the cause that they represent, and I think they're just doing the most amazing stuff, which we're going to dive into and tell you all about, and I really hope it inspires you to get involved and join in with this mission. So thanks everyone for joining us, and Annie, thank you very much for coming and being a giant mind on the Giant Minds podcast. No expectations set with that, don't worry. Just be yourself. For those that aren't aware, the Giant Minds podcast has been going for 1.5 seasons now, and this is a live recording. It was the second ever live recording. You're following in the footsteps of Rob Law, MBE, Wolf Giants, yeah. Who was the first live podcast recording at Bristol Digital Festival. So we're here at Bath Digital Festival, Bristol Technology Festival and Bath Digital Festival. I get those confused. Right. And we're here in Runway East, which is a lovely venue. So would you like to start, Annie, by just sort of giving us a little bit of your background and journey that you've been on so far that's kind of got you to where you are today?
Yeah, so I'm Annie Legge and kind of co-director and co-founder of Tech for Good Southwest, which is essentially a community driving tech for good across the Southwest, so Bath, Bristol and Exeter. Do you want a bit of my journey into that?
Absolutely.
Okay,
yes,
how far back? I started out in...
Skip out kindergarten.
Yeah, I will, but I'll jump a little bit further forward. So I started out in the tech sector nearly 30 years ago as a business analyst, mainly in telecoms, and then moved into sort of more program management type roles in digital agencies, and then sort of headed up digital in corporates and client side. Around that time, I sort of had a young family and decided to move out to New Zealand, where I ended up working in a quite fast-paced SME out there as well for a few years. And I guess it was around about that time when I kind of really felt, and it had been coming for quite a long time, I suppose, but really felt actually a little increasingly frustrated in this kind of very commercial, very sort of fast-paced, high profit, like always about trying to make the most of the owners of the businesses, particularly in the sort of SME space, and just felt like really deeply frustrated. And that's when I decided to actually, why don't we just jack it all in and see what happens. So we moved, I had 2 young boys and we moved out to Asia, and so we moved out to Cambodia and Malaysia for about 18 months. And really, that was really about actually how can I see and feel social impact. So was part of an international development project as a volunteer, and then also just kind of made our way around and actually just tried to really kind of discover ourselves, I suppose, as a family, but also what to actually want to position the rest of my sort of career journey as. So coming back into the UK, I founded a social enterprise called Dot Projects, which we've just closed actually, been 8 years working as Dot Project, which was essentially around supporting the third sector, particularly charities around tech change and digital skills. And that's been an amazing journey. We supported over 1,000 organisations in one shape or form, mainly through sort of funded programs and direct support to charity sector clients. And I guess the red thread through all of this is actually really loving and feeling very passionate about the digital space. I love technology. I love working with technologists. But actually, how can we also make technology more accessible for everyone and have more technology that does good in the world? So hence where the kind of Tech for Good piece has come from. When I set up Dot Project, we really felt there wasn't a lot of conversation going on here in the Southwest. It was all going on in London, and often in an international development context. Actually, what's happening in our local communities, there's also a lot of digital exclusion. There's a lot of need for sort of skills work as well. So we set up Tech for Good Bath about 8 years ago. And Ed, who's here as well, set up Tech for Good Bristol around about the same time. That was very serendipitous, the way these things work. And we decided to merge the 2 groups, but essentially what that was just bringing people together that were interested in where is technology really making a difference to people, but also what are some of the challenges that technology is presenting. So that was the kind of very early stages into Tech for Good Southwest, and we've since incorporated last January as a community interest company to try and do a lot more in the space and like really try and build an ecosystem here in the Southwest.
Yeah, so it's really changed gears recently, and lots of big victories that you've made recently, sort of quite big landmarks in growing Tech for Good Southwest.
Yeah, So I guess some of the early foundations, I suppose since last January, we've been really trying to kind of grow as a team, but also like deeply really understand what are the challenges across the Southwest, but also what are the opportunities? How can we get more sort of tech for good impact? So I think what we're seeing now is like some of those early stage conversations, those initiatives that we've had really coming to life all at the same time, which is a little bit unpredicted. But I guess some of the initiatives that we've kind of launched and are up and running now, one is our AI peer network. So that's specifically targeted at third sector organizations as a kind of peer space for kind of learning and collaboration and understanding around AI. We've also got a digital trustees initiative, so trying to get more tech skills into leadership roles within the third sector as well. And probably the one that's really relevant here today is the Bath Digital Divide Collective, and that started at the Digital Festival 2 years ago, really to say actually we have still like real issues around digital exclusion, and in a city that you've all been here today, you know, it presents as such a wealthy, vibrant, affluent city, but actually we have real pockets of deprivation where people don't have the tech, they don't have the access to data, they don't have the skills or the language barriers to access what is now very digital first, even in our kind of healthcare, for example, as well. And that's really grown. That's been a couple of years now, and that's really started to grow as a wonderful kind of collective of our kind of academic institutions, our council, our local funders, local third sector organisations. And I think that, for me, is a really good example of really building a place where we can bring that kind of cross-sector thinking and learning together.
Yeah, great. And to sort of fully disclose Geiston's link with Tech for Good Southwest, we have a mission partner and a community partner of the year every year at Geiston. And this year's mission partner of the year is Tech for Good Southwest, which I'm super thrilled by. Means that we can kind of really throw our weight behind it, and that's part of our Geiston Foundation's way of sort of ensuring that we're giving back and getting involved in the community in the right way. So this is part of a much wider conversation that we've been having as well, which is
absolutely
great.
And I think that's it's fantastic, because I think you're also really role modelling in terms of actually getting involved. It isn't just been we'll sign up and be part of this and we'll show that we're supporting it. Like, you've turned up to so many of the sessions, been sharing your skills as well, and also really learning and listening. And I think that's just great. That's what we want to see so much more of.
Right. Well, it's been a pleasure. It's very much kind of been a good thing to do. So let's talk a little bit more about some of those initiatives that you've been doing. So there's you're building a community here which is growing, and it's regional. What does the region mean to you? You mentioned Bristol, Bath, Exeter.
Yeah. So I guess I see it more in terms of where there are kind of hubs of action and activity. It seems funny to separate Bath and Bristol, because I always see it as the same, but I know that a lot of people don't and see it. There's still a bit of a sort of divide there. But essentially, it's sort of Bath and Bristol is where we've always been for 7-8 years or so. But there's been quite a lot of kind of action around sort of Exeter and Devon, and we've been very much pulled into that space and say, actually, we love what you're doing, but can we just have it here, and can we do it together? So we've done quite a few events in Exeter. We've got a few coming up as well. We had an unconference there, which is where we really try and bring people together from sort of different perspectives. I think what's really interesting is the different lenses and focus. So they're very, very passionate about, obviously, rural communities and digital exclusion from that point of view. And also digital skills. So there's a real passion around how do we get more young people into work and into sort of different opportunities. So what I also see is these kind of regional hubs, and it may only ever stay where it is now, and that's fine. But actually, where is the motivation and where are the needs in those communities as well?
Yeah, and there's quite a lot of green tech as you move sort of further southwest absolutely. As well, isn't there? Yeah. And
there's definitely a hunger sort of further into sort of Cornwall as well. And I think that's just something. Again, it's just where there's kind of motivation, people who've got the time and capacity to want to really grow that community.
Yeah, and it's quite a complex landscape, all the different kind of communities that overlap a little bit and are trying to build a presence in sort of the same area. So, whether that's like tech specific, you sort of obviously cross tech and the VCSE kind of sectors, but there's other people working purely in the tech sector, purely working in the VCSE sector. There's people working in slightly different regional boundaries and stuff. How do you manage to to bridge those gaps and keep things connected?
So I suppose I spent We all did spend a lot of last year really, and some of those relationships existed already, but actually how do we really build those relationships with other networks? Because actually the most important thing is to bring the voice of Tech for Good, whoever does that, whether that's you or us as Tech for Good Southwest, into those different conversations. And interestingly, one of the first people to sign up as we kind of launched our membership model was Bristol and Bath Legal Tech, because actually they were like, we've got so many tech people. We're a sector that is very used to pro bono, kind of bringing skills and volunteering into different spaces. How can we kind of get more people involved from the tech roles within the industry as well? And the same with the Southwest Cybersecurity Cluster as well. Been having some great conversations with them. You know, they've got 900 people with a whole, you know, range and breadth of cyber skills. Actually, there are people who want to work on projects and actually get involved. So I think it's just about having a lot of conversations, not reinventing the wheel anywhere, not trying to take over any sort of spaces. But I think we represent something quite different because we are cross-sector in the nature. And those of us that are leading Tech for Good come from tech and social sector backgrounds as well. So by the very nature of the team, we kind of come from those different perspectives. So I think it really holds that sort of convening space that's really critical.
Yeah, okay. Tell us a little bit more about some of these specific initiatives. So let's start with the AI peer network. What are the sort of goals and objectives? What caused you to want to make that happen?
Yeah, I guess, so in terms of the sort of third sector or VCSE sector, which we say is kind of charity and social enterprises, I think there's really a lack of, obviously, access to tech and digital skills, particularly in smaller organisations, that they don't often have those kind of roles available as well. And tech is changing all of the time, and then this is obviously one of the biggest waves ever of technology change. And how do we actually help that sector start to kind of learn and play with the technology, get excited about it, but also be aware of the kind of risks and governance issues around it. And what we know deeply about that sector is that it responds very well to kind of, there's a lot of peer learning, there's a lot of working together. So the idea was to kind of create a space for peer learning, to kind of come together to bring sort of questions and curiosity, but also bring actually, this is what I've tried, this is what I've experimented with, this is what I've learned. So we launched that network at the beginning of this year. I think we've done our third session. We've got a AI in action session this afternoon where we've got about 20 or so charities signed up to that, where we'll bring some AI expertise into that as well. And it's very much always pitched at, this is just a space, like whatever you know. If you know nothing, that's great. If you know loads, just come and like share it, because I'm sure you'll learn something as well within that.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of really getting some great momentum, which is exciting.
Yeah, and it really is just moving so fast. I'm like deeply in tech and 100%, and I can't keep up by any stretch with everything that's happening. So, I think that sort of experience and knowledge sharing is just so valuable to anyone, let alone people who are very mission driven and their focus is elsewhere. So they've got very little time potentially to dedicate to this sort of thing. I can see it being.
But I think there's also something very special about it being place-based. So it's focused here, obviously in the Southwest particularly. Obviously today we're in Bath, but actually then we've got organisations in Bath and Bristol who may know each other. So there's a sense of trust that also comes with actually, well, they're going and they've got something out of this space. I'll go along as well. And actually I think that's where the real kind of magic will start to build in that.
Yeah, I think there's something from seeing peers rather than experts kind of do things as well. There's a certain, makes it feel much more accessible.
Yeah.
If you've just got like really deep techies explaining stuff, that's great. It shows people some of the art of the possible. But when you get someone who's a peer, showing them what they've done in their charity or organisation, makes it seem like, oh, I can do that too.
Yeah.
They're just like me. I can
And I think, you've been to a couple of the sessions before as well. We are Level AI. We're working with very closely Simon Allen. So he used to be the CEO of Age UK, Bath and North East Somerset. He likes to tinker with technology, and actually he'd done so much in terms of understanding actually how can I help my organisation from a governance and operations perspective using AI. Actually, that's something I want to share and learn with others in my space, because I deeply understand the challenges of organisations like ourselves. And so that's great, because he understands the two kind of worlds and can act as that bridge and that intermediary.
Yeah, absolutely. And and you've got this digital trustees program that's kind of running alongside. There seems to be a connection there as well.
In terms of
the AI sort of peer network side of it, it's giving, introducing tech expertise into BCSE organisations.
Yeah.
There's a parallel between the AI peer network and that cross collaboration and the digital trustees network.
Yeah, so the digital trustees piece, that's building on a model that's worked really well by an organisation called Third Sector Labs. They've been running it for quite a while, so this is in partnership with them. And essentially what it does is create the space for matchmaking. So charities can come along and say, I'm looking for a digital trustee, this is what we do. And also then you can have people across the tech sector as well who are interested in exploring. But they also have a lot of resources and tools to learn about being digital trustee, and a lot of support if you're a first-time kind of trustee in those roles. And we've seen a couple of people that have match made already, having come off even just one session that we've run. And that's really exciting, because also how can we get more of our tech sector locally as well that are supporting particularly local third sector organisations too. I think this kind of place-based bit is, for me, actually, really at the heart of it.
And from our experience working with charities in particular, it can seem like it might be a big commitment to as a technologist to do these things, but actually in some cases a small amount of input goes an enormous way.
Yeah.
And while you do need to be aware of and protective of your boundaries and how much time you're giving and so on, actually just giving very little can make a huge difference to some of these organisations.
I think it's, though, also being aware of what the responsibility is as a digital trustee. I think a lot of people just go into it thinking, well, maybe I can just go and tinker and I can help do some, which you must never do, because actually it's about taking a kind of holistic view in terms of how that organisation's using technology, and helping kind of guide them around that best practice rather than doing and getting actively involved. And that's hard.
That's where we've seen the biggest, I mean, it's back to the old expression, teach someone how to fish rather than giving them a fish. Just by showing people how to achieve certain things, that's what I was thinking of when I was saying that those small bits of input can make a huge difference.
Yeah, and actually, I was a digital trustee. I stood down from it quite recently, and I was only a digital trustee for about 18 months. I kind of got into it in terms of I can definitely be there from a kind of overarching perspective, because tech is so huge. I'm never going to be able to answer all the questions that you have. And actually I realised that a lot of the change I wanted to make was around a digital trustees program, not actually being one necessarily myself. But it was interesting, because as I was kind of departing, I had them all coming around going, but what are we going to do about AI? Like, how do we know? Like, what are we going to do? And so that's the thing, actually. It's being able to steer them in the right direction, but them knowing that you're not going to have all the answers. Yeah,
come to an AI peer network meeting, wasn't that
exactly?
The
That's what I said. Exactly.
Yeah, great. And tell us a little bit more about the Digital Divide Collective and how that's operating.
Yeah, so that was very much started, as I said, a couple of years ago, off the back of seeing that there was a few initiatives across Bath that were looking at digital skills in the community, looking at kind of a digital inclusion piece, but all quite siloed. So actually we used the Digital Festival a couple of years ago to say, actually, let's try and bring people together. Let's understand before the festival what the challenge is. Let's bring some of the tech sector into this space and we did a hackathon over 3 days to kind of address a couple of particular challenges. And then we had We're a Hop House at LMP just to kind of do a bit of a call to action and say, we should do something about this. And so it's very much been held by Tech for Good Southwest and Bath Bridge, which is a local social enterprise as well that kind of does a lot of these joining the dots. And I guess there's been a sort of core group probably of about 7 or 8 of us that have continued to kind of lead that. So we meet up every month, and we've got a really nice kind of diverse set of stakeholders that come to those sessions. Started off with, we don't have any funding, so it was all about actually what capacity do we have, what do we know, what skills can we bring. And that's been amazing, because you just get the first little bit of £1,000 grant, and then you get a little bit of a research project to kind of evaluate the impact of what you're doing. Now we've just had a £5,000 grant, so we can have somebody that sits at the centre of that and coordinates our activity. But essentially what we're doing practically is working in a couple of communities in Bath, Twerton and Whiteway and South Tottenham White Way, particularly in Bath as well, looking at actually what are the needs there, what are the third sector organisations that are supporting those communities, what do they know, what do they see, and how can we kind of support them through the work that they're already doing. How can we kind of support around digital skills, getting local businesses to donate devices, get on a national data bank programme. So we've been doing a lot of these kind of very small micro interventions that I see as the kind of foundations for kind of more action. Tomorrow we've got a digital skills roundtable where, as I think I might have mentioned it earlier, but kind of bringing together those kind of key stakeholders across the city that can deliver digital skills, and how do we actually co-design some work that we can do together into the communities or into those kind of sectors that need support.
Yeah, so there's a lot of working with existing communities there and seeing how you can help enable them and give them the tools that they need.
And it's about not parachuting in and saying, right, we're going to do stuff here. And that's the biggest learning. I mean, and helping people to understand that it is about building trust and relationships and not just like parachuting in and running a digital skills workshop. It's like, actually, how do we build trust with the communities, with the families? So we've been working with Southside and Tottenham White Way Community Network. You know, they have lots of kind of after school foods, cafes and clubs, and actually just going in and listening and learning what are people wanting, what are people seeing, and then introducing quite a lot of play. So we've been sort of, I guess, experimenting with a digital playground where actually we can do some creative stuff with the kids, get them excited, but also what are the parents needing. And it's been really interesting. There's been quite a lot around, actually, I'm quite nervous. I'm going back into work. I don't know how to use Microsoft anymore. It's all changed since I was last in the workplace. So we're starting to kind of really understand and see where there's some little needs.
Yeah, because quite a few of the initiatives are on children, but actually I think the need for older people is really important.
Huge,
now.
yeah.
And growing. I mean, where do you see this need and this gap changing? Because like AI, big thing, big new tool, big skill that people need to kind of learn if they don't want to get left behind potentially.
Well, I guess our main focus from Tech for Good is actually thinking at an organisational level. So how can we support the sector, organisations in that sector to be able to have the confidence, but also the space to learn and also learn together? How can we kind of co-design ways of supporting our organisations together as well? And I think there's a lot of advocacy as well to kind of out into the tech sector, actually help us learn, but also listen to what the needs are that we're seeing. I do see, like with third sector organisations, they have a lot of responsibility to the people that they're supporting as well. So actually they need to role model, they need good practice in technology and digital as well.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps that's the easiest way to reach these communities is by demonstrating it like in front of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's I speak to so many people who are really daunted by it, and that sort of level of how scary it seems must just sort of increase as you get further and further away from what we consider normal, I guess.
Yeah. And we've always had that with Tech for Good. With a lot of the events that we do, I would say most of the time we get at least 2 or 3 people email before and say, I'm a bit nervous about coming. I don't know if I would fit in. I don't know anything about tech. So I suppose we really pride ourselves on creating a safe space for those, and that work really hard at that and being welcoming, and this is space for everyone to kind of learn and be there and kind of hold that really, really tightly.
Yeah. What's the secret to that? How do you, apart from just being lovely, which obviously you are, are there any tips and tricks to kind of just creating that really open, accessible environment?
I think it helps with what we're trying to do, that we come from those different sectors ourselves, and so we do have I've worked within charities for the last 8-9 years. It's been purely in the social sector, and also we've been in the tech space as well. So I think it's being that kind of intermediary, that kind of voice that can see the challenges both sides is really important. And I think always just being quite informal, relaxed. We're not always going to get it right. We make mistakes as well, and that's okay. And this is just a space to kind of learn and build together.
Yeah. There's something about making mistakes in front of people that puts them at ease sometimes, isn't there? I remember hearing a story of someone who always deliberately tripped up when he walked into a room.
Well, I might try that one.
Yeah. So just to try and make people feel like they weren't the fool. There was someone else there. Great. I mean, it's all so much amazing stuff going on with Tech for Good Southwest, and it's a real growth year, it seems, for the organisation, and really kind of establishing yourselves this year in particular. What are the calls to actions we can put out there to people?
Well, one of the initiatives that we launched, in fact, yesterday was a Tech Skills for Good program that we're doing. We're doing a pilot with Aviva, who have over 200 people in their tech team in North Bristol. This conversation has been going on for a long time, but actually, they're really hungry for. We have 21 hours a year or more each that we can put into volunteering. Some of us want to go and do that on a beach in Weston-super-Mare, but others actually, I want to use my skills for good, and how can I do that? So I think for me, it's like more of what we really hope. So we started this pilot with 4 third sector organisations. So we had a kick-off meeting yesterday that was bringing the charities and the Aviva team together to co-design how we're going to run this pilot together. And then at the Bristol Technology Festival, hopefully a bigger sort of call to action to say, we are an amazing tech hub, and we've got amazing businesses, small, medium, large, who all have amazing skills. Like, how can we kind of make it work so that there is some kind of co-learning, co-sharing of those kind of skills as well?
Yeah. So I guess the biggest call to action is come forward, join the Tech for Good Southwest network, become a member.
Absolutely. It's
a happy and growing community.
Yep. And as of last week, we are officially housed here in Runway East. So we've got a partnership with Runway East as well to give us access to some co-working space, which is just a game changer. That means we can actually we all know, makes such a difference when you're in person with each other. But imagine if you've got a non-profit sat next to somebody like yourself, that's sat next to somebody that's like a consultant in the public sector. That's where the magic really happens, and we kind of learn and listen to each other, and just opens your eyes to like, actually, what are some of the opportunities? And I'd say Tech for Good is very much about hopefulness. It's not about criticism. It's not that tech's all bad. It's like, it is what it is, but it's also amazing. And how can we celebrate that? But also, how can we do more? Which is what excites me.
Yeah. And who's it for? Who should come forward?
So I guess our kind of main audiences are obviously anyone in the tech sector, anyone that's running sort of charity sector organisations or in them, or social enterprises.
And not necessarily technologists of any shape, very
not.
much just anyone there.
And then I guess in the middle of that is Tech for Good founders or scale-up businesses. So people who are actually trying to address some challenges, either from an environmental or social impact perspective, and they're using technology to do that. Because what we also are really championing is how do we create more enabling environments that more people want to find ways to use technology to like address challenges that we have in our communities, however small, however big. It's like, let's all kind of create those environments together.
Yeah. So if someone wants to get involved, they should come and have a chat.
Come and have a chat, reach out to me, go onto our website as well, and then we're on it all the time. We'll be there, we'll have a conversation.
Yeah. Or come and have a chat to me, because I'd love to talk about Tech for Good Southwest with people.
Yeah,
and,
amazing.
I'll be your sales rep. It won't take commission, I promise. Brilliant. Well, thanks very much for joining us, Annie.
Thank you.
And it's been a great conversation, and hopefully everyone out there is feeling inspired to get involved and
definitely.
Yeah, come join the community.
Yeah. Thank
Brilliant.
you.
Thanks.